Hi guys, thanks again for coming to my channel. I'm Megan Markey. I'm an intuitive life coach, and I put up these videos to share with people who are going through their intuitive awakening some of the things that helped me when I was discovering what this is. As I explained before, I had what I felt like was a very normal life before I sort of got sideswiped by this intuitive awakening process. And my understanding is hundreds of thousands of people are going through it. So what I want to talk about today is when you know you're receiving an intuitive message. So I learned this from a medium that I studied with for a year. He was an amazing teacher, and in fact I'll leave his information below my description. If you live in New York, I highly recommend his class. He's been a medium for 35 years and he's brilliant. So how to distinguish between fear or a random thought and an intuitive message. So intuitive messages should be considered anything that interrupts your normal train of thought. So you're going about cooking pancakes, for example, and you're thinking about adding the butter and adding the chocolate chips if you're in my house, or adding, the coconut oil, and then all of a sudden your grandmother pops into your mind. And it feels like it's pulling at your attention, and you're like, oh, what's going on with my grandmother? Most of us have so many thoughts going through our mind. It's like Grand Central. We ignore when these things happen. We need to understand that that's an intuitive message. So typically, if you have something that interrupts your normal stream of thought, that's calling at your attention. It's essentially popping into the normal stream of attention span, calling you to think about something else. So when I started to put this into play, and in other words, call attention to the mechanism of my thoughts being interrupted, here's what happened. I essentially, if anyone popped into my mind while I was thinking about something else, I will always reach out. I will send them a text message, I will send them an email, and just say, what's up? And I will tell you that 9 times out of 10, that person is going through something and they needed a call, they needed some attention. Or they were just thinking of you and they were like, oh, I meant to reach out to you at this time. For me, this has been great for business. For example, I was doing this prior to my intuitive awakening. I would always sort of track, this is maybe silly, but I found it so useful. I would track the astrological signs of all of my clients, and therefore have some intuitive insight to what their thought process was. So I never felt caught off guard when they would pull something random, because I'd be like, oh, I saw that coming, this was in your chart. But right now in business, it's great because I can see ahead of time when I need to check in with something, and oftentimes that's sort of like a soft touch where like it shows that I care because I do care, but I am keeping my clients on my mind all the time. So I have called that into play a good amount. The other things that will come up in terms of receiving an intuitive message is if I have set the intention at the beginning of the morning, or said a prayer, or written out in my notes a question. Oftentimes I'll get messages in the media that I consume that day. So I'll hear a podcast, I'll watch a YouTube video, or someone will send me an article to read that will be literally the direct answer to the question that I asked at the beginning of the day. So again, prior to this intuitive awakening, I would have dismissed that altogether and just thought that was a coincidence, for example. Now I know, or we would call this like a synchronicity in the intuitive world, that those things are real. Those are, we are actually communicating at all times with people, with the universe, and they are responding. So I use that term they loosely because I don't know what it is, but it is call and response. And in terms of how it's worked for me, I will put out something and immediately I can ask, or I will receive the sign quite literally in like a blog article, an Instagram post that I see, etc. I'll make another video about what happens when you ignore these signs. another way I receive intuitive messages through songs. So I have a friend who should be called, like, we call her God's DJ. She's a psychic, but she oftentimes gets messages through music. And my understanding now is that music is like a high form of programming, because it gets you singing, and through voice and through word, you're able to sort of program your brain, your thoughts, and you really shift your mood quickly. The universe oftentimes sends you songs to do all the things at once. If they want to give you a really impactful message that will shift your mood, that's an answer to the question that you're trying to resolve in your day, they'll send you a song. So you'll get a YouTube video, you'll hear it on Spotify, someone will send the song to you, and that's how you know when you hear the message and it's the exact thing that you've been working on, the problem you've been working on. That's how you know. That started happening to me all the time in 2016 when I was going through the initial stages of my intuitive awakening. Other ways I receive intuitive messages. Sometimes I will just get a strong feeling in my body. Usually if I get a feeling in my body, that has more to do with something that I'm not doing that I need to do. So if it's gotten to the point where I've ignored the blogs, ignored the songs, ignored the etc., I will feel a tension, and it's always here in the back of my neck and like down the back of my side. And I'd be curious to know if you guys have different places in your body where it shows up and it's very powerful. If I feel it in my body, it's like a knowing, and I have to take action on it, or I won't get that feeling to go away in my body. So the way to process these intuitive messages is really to get it out. So you have to write it down, you have to tell a friend, you have to speak it to yourself, write the email, or call the person you need to call to tell the message to. And that's the way that the intuitive message that you received will be processed through the body. Otherwise, it gets pent up, and in my understanding, this is what causes depression and anxiety. We have all of this intuition, all of these signs, all of these messages that we've ignored, and they are still in the body, but we have no way to process them, or we have no understanding of how they should be processed. So we keep them trapped inside, and then we have to do other things to sort of move the energy, like drink a lot of caffeine, or drink alcohol, or smoke cigarettes to just try to dampen the feeling of this sort of pent-up balloon-like water retention of intuitive messages that get locked and trapped in the body. So I hope that helps some of you in terms of understanding how an intuitive message is received. You're not crazy. These things are happening to you, and when you go through an intuitive awakening, all of a sudden they start happening every single day, and it's like you are in a totally different reality or dimension, whereas before you may have been walking around feeling lost and sort of going through your to-do list for the day. Now all of a sudden you're like thinking things in your head, and you will walk into a stranger and they'll tell you like, oh, the place where you need to go is on the block, and that's where you can do karate. They're giving classes for free. And you will be like, but yes, that's definitely a part of intuitive awakening. Your thoughts becoming reality is so much faster. And it takes some getting used to. It's like riding a wave, essentially, where you kind of have to let go and trust that the answer is coming to you if you've put it out there or if you've thought it. I'll get a little deeper into that, but that's the basics of how to, or how you know you're receiving an intuitive message. Thanks so much for watching again. If you liked the video, please subscribe. If you feel a friend could benefit from it, please share. I'll be sending out a new video in a newsletter each week, so if you're interested in learning more, please subscribe to the newsletter. And you can find more information on my coaching at meganmarkey.com. Thanks so much again.